This also leads to a question for Advocate Madonsela. We spoke about the creativity of the way in which you were able to interpret the law to produce the reports that you did. But in your experience as public protector, what challenges were whistleblowers confronted with? What was the role that your office played to protect them in handling these matters? And what challenges did you personally experience in trying to investigate these complaints, noting the fact that we do have an institution that's tasked with investigating matters of this nature?
Thank you. Firstly, thank you to the organizers of the event. It is a timely event, and thank you for including me. The greatest challenge for whistleblowers is the fact that it is a lonely journey. When I attended a good governance conference in Prague a few years ago, I met a colleague there who had established a fund, a multi-billion-dollar fund, exclusively targeted at protecting whistleblowers. Because they're going to strangle you financially, they're going to strangle you socially, and of course economically. In terms of just litigation, they will tie you up in litigation. A lot of the whistleblowers were faced. Firstly, the NPA doesn't prosecute the wrongdoers. In one case, it was a case of a company. It wasn't corruption in government. It was corruption in a company that was robbing government. Every time I see their banner and I see they're growing, and I'm saying, oh God, the corruption is growing. I won't mention their name because the matter was never prosecuted. But this is an IT company where the whistleblower discovered that they were charging government for work that's not done. It's normally said it's lawyers that charge for work that's not done. And when they go to heaven, it will be asked, how come you live this long when actually you bill so many hours? But these were IT experts. Because she gave birth under atrocious circumstances. It's a sad story, and that's one of the extreme cases. And then there's a case that anyone was fired for being rude. There's one who was blacklisted from getting jobs, where it is an unspoken rule that this one doesn't get hired. And then in this one case, they made a mistake. She went through and she was recommended. And when the letter went to the MEC, without giving reasons, said she's not going to be hired. And we investigated and found that it's true that she had been recommended, and in terms of the law, the MEC was required to state the reasons why the job was re-advertised, and we gave her a job back. Most of them, we've given them their jobs back. In fact, everyone who came through us, they got something out of it, but you can never give them their life. I just think the social isolation. Another problem is that in our language, in English, we have the word whistleblower, which connotes somebody closely history against wrongdoing. In my language, which is Swazi, it's Indindi. And that really connotes the one who collaborates with the wrong people to treat badly the good people. And then the whistleblower, then nobody wants to be in Indindi. And that's so those are basically the kinds of difficulties that experience. It's the financial thing, the isolation, but also the social stigma around it. The last thing takes me back to democracy. Why democracy suffers? I'm in the Tumor Foundation. Our work is slightly similar to democracy work. We are a think and action tank that seeks to empower the people to support, defend, deepen, and strengthen democracy. Because we believe the sovereign are the real people. And what happens is once you delete the people from democracy, things fall apart. Because democracy, those who like roots of words would say demos is people, kratos is power. So democracy is supposed to be people's power. In most modern democracies, the sovereign is no longer the people. In an article I wrote yesterday on the City Press, in which I had hoped that I would get lots of comments around it, it was supposed to say the debate about where are the people. In California, people said it stops right here. But the defenders of democracy in California were not crusaders. The crusaders, like us, were activators. But defending and deepening democracy must be done by the sovereigns. And the sovereigns are the people. Because if we don't get the people to defend democracy, we allow the wrongdoers to isolate us, to call us clever blacks, to call us white monopoly capitalist defenders. People like me, you end up having your nose with Mr. What's Mr. I don't know, whatever he did to those people. Because white monopoly capital is really one person in this country, isn't it? It's Rupert. So they have me as a cow, literally, as a cow. When this whole thing, this white monopoly capital thing started the attack started, they had me drawn as a cow with him, pulling me like that. So, but they get to isolate you because of the lone crusading, or relative lone crusading. And when we started the Tuma Foundation, it's because we thought that democracy, it's the government of the people, by the people, for the people. And if we don't empower people to be the ones who defend their sovereignty, we will always be isolated. But secondly, we could even defend democracy from one elite group, as our colleague, Professor Habib said. You can defend democracy from one elite group to hand it over to another elite group. And with due respect to everyone in government today, somebody has to explain to me why the Equality Act was stopped. Which interest group stopped the Equality Act from being implemented? The Equality Act was a social vehicle to achieve what today is called radical economic transformation. Which radical economic transformation deals with one interest group's concerns around social change. The Equality Act was about dealing with everyone's interests, because we knew that apartheid had eroded human dignity, had eroded social justice, and Professor Gumede was right and said it's not just about economic empowerment, it's about social empowerment, because people have been socially disempowered. Young girls are reclaiming their identity, saying, I want my name. So that's not about money. It's about the dehumanization, the wronging of blackness. So part of the new democracy was about righting blackness and not making black wrong just because it's black. So the Equality Act, Chapter 5, which somebody has to tell me which interest group suppressed. Chapter 5 is yet to be implemented. That was the vehicle to look at what vestiges of apartheid continue to shackle people in the past, and therefore undermines freedom. And how do we, in an evolutionary way, transform society to ensure that all areas of life where people have been shackled are liberated, so that everyone should be part of this project of democracy as we march together to the South Africa of our dreams. Thank you.
Thank you.